up everyone! So continuing the Venice Film Festival coverage, today's movie I'm discussing on the channel is the latest film from one of my favourite filmmakers, Luca Guadagnino. The man has been on something of a hot streak in the last few years with Call Me By Your Name, Suspiria, Bones and All, and most recently Challenges, which we had earlier this year. His latest film, Queer, is an adaptation of the novel of the same name by William S. Burroughs. This was actually my most anticipated film in the entire Venice lineup this year because you've got a legendary gay filmmaker telling a movie which is about a gay story with Daniel Craig in the lead role. Okay, my anticipation levels were off the charts. Just want to state for the record right away, I have not read the book. So yeah, I have nothing to compare this film to. I can't tell you if this is a faithful adaptation of the source material, but I finally saw this movie today and it is safe to say that Queer is probably going to be the most polarizing film of the entire Venice Film Festival. After I came out of the screening, the reactions and the responses were all over the place. Some people were saying it was one of the best of the festival, and others were saying like this is Luca Guadagnino's worst film he's ever done. And you know what? I totally get it. I see both sides of the argument. I understand why some people absolutely adore this film, and I can understand why others hate it. But how did I feel as I was watching this film? I'm gonna say that I'm a fan of this film. I'm not gonna say that this is one of my favorite Guadagnino films. I do have some issues with this film, but it did deliver what I wanted from this movie, which was a world-class performance from Daniel Craig. While the movie is a bit mixed, I can say that he absolutely shines in this. I saw this film just a few hours ago, but immediately after I left, I already felt like I needed a second viewing of it. I kind of shot myself in the foot by saying on Twitter that I was going to get my review for Queer up on the same day that I saw it, because Queer really is one of those movies that you need some time to digest it, okay? There is a lot to unpack with this film. Honestly, if you read or watch 10 different reviews of Queer today, you're probably gonna get 10 different interpretations from all the critics that have reviewed it. It really is one of those films where you can watch it like a dozen times, and each time you watch it, you'll get something new from it. Because this is a film with layers upon layers of meaning, okay? There is so many different ways to read this film. So yeah, bear in mind that I am just one guy who hasn't read the book and hasn't had that much time to process everything that he just watched a few hours ago. But I'm gonna do my best to tell you what I thought it was about. Set in Mexico City during the early 1950s, Queer follows a gay American expat called William Lee, who's playing this film by Daniel Craig, and his hopeless pursuit for love and companionship. Lee becomes infatuated with a younger man called Eugene Allerton, playing this film by Drew Starkey. I would say that the first 2/3 of this film are pretty conventional. It's a boy meets boys story. It explores the relationship between Lee and Eugene, which feels like an unrequited situation. It feels like Lee is far more invested in the relationship than Eugene is. And the first 2/3 also show us Lee's struggle with opioid addiction, okay? He's a heroin addict. If anything, I would say the first 2 chapters of this film are really a star vehicle for Daniel Craig to show us just exactly what he's made of. Like, Daniel Craig's performance in this is just phenomenal. He really throws himself into it 110%. However, as we progress into the 3rd chapter of the film, this is where things start to get a little bit more unorthodox, surreal, and even a little bit experimental. William invites Eugene on a trip to South America for what seems like a holiday at first, but it's actually a quest for something much deeper. You see, William is looking for a substance known as yahe. You guys might know it as ayahuasca. It's a psychedelic substance which is found typically on tree bark or vines in the jungle. And Lee believes that yahe has the capacity to open up one's minds and, get this, has telepathic properties. Yes, sorry. I hear myself saying it out loud. Yeah, it does sound so weird saying it out loud. But yeah, I did warn you, the 3rd act does get very weird. And I can totally understand why not every audience member will appreciate this random change in direction in the last third, because yeah, you've spent a good hour and a bit like watching what feels like a conventional drama about a self-destructive gay man to then shift into this sort of like odd Indiana Jones-esque journey where he is literally like chopping vines through the jungle with a machete in hand, encountering poisonous vipers. Yeah, this is all stuff that happens in the movie. So you can find this yahi specialist called Dr. Cotters, who's played this film by an almost unrecognizable Lesley Manville. Like I said, there is a lot going on in this film, okay? It is the type of film that requires multiple viewings in order to get a proper grasp of the themes and ideas that it's exploring. But this is how I read the film, okay? Fundamentally, I think this is a story about human connection. Because William Lee is a lonely, self-loathing man, rejected by his own country just for being gay, and he's internalized that hatred. Because he says he comes from a long line of self-proclaimed perverts, okay? And he's a boozer, he's also a junkie. And he's filling that void of loneliness and sorrow with sex, booze, and drugs. And he's seeking out this yahe substance because he believes its telepathic properties will help him with his communication with others, to make physical contact with others, to forge a tangible connection. Guadagnino's films are always very sensory, whether it's taste, smell, sound. In Queer, there's a real emphasis on the sense of touch, that fundamental desire to be connected to another person through physical touch. So many significant moments happen in this film when Lee and Eugene touch. Something as simple as Eugene just popping his leg on top of Lee as they fall asleep is charged with so much passion. In the early stages of the film, we see Lee's desire to touch Eugene manifest visually. It's almost like his soul is coming out of his body, and we see an overlay of Lee touching Eugene. It's almost like he's a ghost or something. And there's a sex scene later on in the film where Lee is high as a kite on drugs, and you can see their bodies writhing together in the sweet, sweet agony of sex, and their bodies kind of like merge, meld, and melt together. To quote the Spice Girls, when two become one. This is another Guadagnino film which is just dripping in sensuality, okay? Nobody does desire in film like Guadagnino does. So yeah, that's how I read the film, as a lonely man's desire and hunger for intimacy and connection. When you've seen Queer, do let me know your interpretations of the film in that comment section down below. I will say, in an odd way, Challengers and Queer do share that similar idea of communication. Because Challengers was all about semiotics, subtext, reading between the lines. Okay, that is all, in a sense, a form of communication. And in Queer, Lee is seeking out the yahe because he believes it will help him to telepathically communicate with others, okay? And what is telepathy if not communicating but without talking? This applies to all of Guadagnino's films, but the way he shoots his scenes, there's always so much more going on than what you can see on just the surface. And Queer is no exception, okay? There is a lot of visual imagery going on in this film. The game of chess is something that's often brought up throughout the film, and chess is a very strategic game. And in the beginning of the film, we watch Lee seduce a young man at a bar, and the way that Guadagnino shoots the scene is almost like a game of chess, because Lee brings over a shot full of tequila to offer this young man that he wants to have sex with, and the way that they move the shot glass back and forth between the two of them, it's like they're playing chess across the table, okay? It's moves and counter moves until Lee gets his checkmate. Even the scene where Lee and Eugene meet for the first time is loaded with symbolic tension, because it's literally them locking eyes across each other in slow-mo as a literal cockfight is taking place on the street. So yeah, cockfights, yeah, subtext. So yeah, while I know the third act of this film will lose a lot of people, I still really did appreciate the film overall and the risks that Guadagnino has taken and how much visual imagery he brings to this film. But yeah, what else is good about this film? Well, Guadagnino did call in his A-team for Queer, because you've got a lot of returning talent from Challengers all delivering excellent work here, okay? We've got Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross doing the score again, and you know how Challengers had the iconic doofy Berlin nightclub vibey feel to the score? Well, this is very, very different, okay? It's still very erotically charged, but it's more melancholy and almost softer, but like it's beautiful. It just goes to show how versatile Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are as composers. Also, the soundtrack choices were really good too. Sayombo McDeeprum is back doing more delectable cinematography. There's certain shots in this where I was just in awe of the cinematography, like this one scene where Lee sits on a bench and it's through a bunch of like purpley petals or leaves on a tree. It's absolutely stunning. Jason Schwartzman was good in this. He has this small role as another queer friend of Lee's called Joe, and he's kind of this hapless gay, having the worst luck with the men he sleeps with because they're always like nicking his watch and wallet. He was really good in this, really funny. Also, Lesley Manville as Dr. Cotters, okay? Always the professional, always bringing her A game. She was so good in this. Again, I didn't even recognize it was her until like 5 minutes into her scene. The woman is a chameleon, okay? She disappeared into this role. That's another thing to mention. The hair and makeup in this is really good as well. That's probably an aspect that you had zero expectations for in a film like this, but yeah, the hair and makeup in this was fantastic, especially on Lesley Manville and Jason Schwartzman, okay? They really transformed into those parts. You got Lesley Manville with that massive forehead and hairline, and then you've got Jason Schwartzman, who's been transformed into a bit of a pudgy chap. Also, I adored the world building of Queer. queer. Like, they really do bring Mexico City to life in this film, like with the exterior shots on the street, but also the production design of the interior sets, like Lee's apartment, as well as the Ships Ahoy bar where they hang out and play chess and drink, and also even the jungle. But that's how good the production design in this film was, okay? I wasn't sure if they were actually shooting in a real jungle or not. But yeah, the sets were fantastic, just incredible work from Stefano Bassi. As for negatives, I do think this film is saying so much that there was too much for me to get on a first viewing, okay? I'm waiting for another YouTuber to do a video essay on this movie explaining all of it, because there's bits of it I didn't get on the first time. I still don't know what the symbolism of the centipedes was all about. You think you know? Let me know in that comment section below. Also, some of the editing was a little jarring in places. I think that just really comes down to the fact that I read somewhere that this was originally like a 3-hour film of Luca Guadagnino's, but they've, you know, trimmed it down to 2 hours and 15. So yeah, if they've had to cut out a lot, then it makes sense that some scene-to-scene transitions might feel a little bit jarring in places. But yeah, I did notice some editing choices that seemed, I don't think they were intentional, let's just say that. Also, I'm just realizing I haven't really mentioned anything about Drew Starkey. I'll say this, okay? He gives a lovely performance, but I honestly would have liked a little bit more from his character, because honestly, he really is just like a passenger on board for the journey with Lee in this film. Like, he's literally there along for the ride. Like, he doesn't really have much to do other than just be there with him. Like, he's just a companion. And I kind of just wanted a little bit more from him. I wanted to know what made him tick. I wanted to know how queer exactly was he. Like, it's sort of implied that he's not 100%, you know, gay, but yeah, I felt like I just wanted more from him. And while the performance is good, the character wasn't written to great depth. Okie dokie, shall we talk about its Oscars chances? So I went into Queer thinking that this was going to be an Oscars player. And for the first 2/3 of the film, I thought, yes, this does have a chance. I thought maybe this could be like the prestige pick of the year, you know, like Tar or something. But as the film progressed into the third act and it got more and more obtuse and more weird, all of that just evaporated. I was like, this is not going to be a massive player at the Oscars. Honestly, now that I've seen the movie, I feel less confident about saying that Daniel Craig is going to be a lock for Best Actor. I still think he can get into Best Actor, but I don't think it's a guarantee anymore. The polarizing nature of this film could damage his chances of getting his first Oscar nomination. But I will say this, he is absolutely worthy of getting that Best Actor nomination. It is a phenomenal performance, and for the first 2/3 of the film, he is doing every sort of box-checking thing that you kind of need to get nominated, okay? Because for one, he's a straight man playing a gay role, okay? He's a heroin addict, okay? There's scenes where he's like detoxing, where like he's writhing in agony and pain, and yeah, the physical side of his performance is fantastic. He's doing an American accent, okay, and not one like he's doing in the Knives Out franchise, okay? This feels like a genuine, like, believable American accent. He's got a lot of big speeches in this. There's a lot of emotion on display. But that third act is where things start to get very weird, and there's things in his performance which would be weird to some. And no, I'm not referring to the gay sex, okay? That was hot. Yeah, all that weird, unorthodox imagery that happens in the third act could be too off-putting to some voters, and in a year where Best Actor is actually looking pretty competitive, that could be the difference between making the fight for Best Actor and not. I'm hoping that Daniel Craig is like the male equivalent of Ana de Armas in Blonde or Kristen Stewart in Spencer. You know, films that were polarizing, not liked by everybody, but everybody could see that the central performance in those films was a career highlight for that actor, so they gave them a nomination anyway. I'm hoping that's the case for Daniel Craig here, because I do think he is deserving of that nomination. I can see an outcome where Daniel Craig is the sole nomination for Queer. Kind of like Coleman Domingo in Rustin last year. Unless the tea leaves suggest otherwise, that's probably how I'm predicting Queer will do with Oscar nominations on Oscars morning. But I do think it is deserving for acknowledgement in other categories like production design, cinematography, score, even hair and makeup or visual effects. Yep. Even visual effects. Those are all unlikely, but not impossible. And then there's categories where I don't think it has a chance, like Best Picture, Direction, or Best Adapted Screenplay. Okay, I think the film is going to be too divisive to get those nominations. Honestly, now that I've seen the movie, I think there is a likelihood that maybe, because Queer is going to be so polarizing, it's actually going to throw focus back onto Guadagnino's other film, Challengers, and it might actually get more nominations there, because that is the more accessible and commercial Guadagnino film that came out this year. Plenty of people won't like Queer, but so many people love Challengers. But yeah, I'm really keen to see how the two Luca Guadagnino movies do at next year's Oscars. What do you guys think? What are you predicting for both Queer and Challengers, Oscar nomination wise? Let me know in the comment section down below. All right then, let's ask them 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch this again? Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, this is a film that actually demands more viewings in order to understand it better. So yeah, I'll definitely be watching it again at some point. Question 2, do I recommend it for you guys? Ooh, God, that's a tough one. This film is not going to be for everybody. If you're a fan of Daniel Craig, then I would say it is worth watching for his performance, but I'm warning you, the film is a lot, okay? So he's great in a movie that I know not everyone's going to like, but he is so good that it's worth checking out. I think this is a film more for the cinephiles than the casual moviegoer, okay? But yeah, I do recommend it, but if you don't like bold, unusual, long movies, then yeah, this might not be for you. And third question, what score am I gonna give it out of 10? I had a really good time with Queer, okay? I'm not going to say it's one of my favorite Guadagnino films. In fact, I would say it's one of my least favorite of his works, but even Guadagnino on a bad day is still better than most. But yeah, there was a lot about this film that I really liked, particularly Daniel Craig's performance. So I'm going to give Queer a score of 6.5 out of 10. But as always, guys, it is just one bloke's opinion. I want to hear from you. Are you excited for Queer? Have you seen it? If you have, what did you make of this film? How does it rank for you in all of Guadagnino's movies? Whatever you have to say, do let me know in that comment section down below. If you guys have enjoyed this video and want more Oscar season content, don't forget to click subscribe. Please help me reach my end of year goal of getting to 10,000 subscribers. And if you want to stay up to date with all my Venice Film Festival coverage, be sure to follow me on the socials. You can find links to all these in that video description down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, the Oscars, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Harefield, and I'll see you next time.